All right. I am going to call the Town of Southborough Capital Planning Committee meeting to order. It is January 20th, 2022, and it is 7:33 p.m. Given the number of other boards and committees that have posted, and I do see quorums of most, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go one by one and bring just the chair in that I see of the board or committee with a quorum. I'm going to have them call their meeting to order. I'm going to then return them to the attendee section until the presentation is over. Once the presentation is over, we will bring each board and committee in for their own section of public comment or questions all at once. At the end of that, I will ask the chair or representative from that board or committee to adjourn their meeting, given the need for a roll call vote. And you're welcome to then stay, but we will not then allow additional public comment from your board or committee once you go through your section. Now, I realize that some may not have any questions, but we are going to try to accommodate everyone. If you're here as a member of the public and have questions at the end of this, or you're a member of a board or committee that did not post a meeting here, we will take questions as part of a normal public comment after each of the other subsequent boards and committees have concluded. So if you can bear with me for a few minutes, I'm going to do the easiest one first. I see a quorum of the Capital Planning Committee School Research Subcommittee, which I am the chair of. And I see Ms. Martin is also present, and I believe Ms. Cook will be here. So we have a quorum as two. So that meeting is officially called to order at 7:35. I'm going to bring Mr. Challen in as the chair of the Southborough School Committee, and I'm going to start to promote each of the chairs and let them call their respective meetings to order. They should then be able to see the attendees in the audience if they'd like to announce their membership that is present. Roger, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Jason, you need to tell me who's in attendance, because if I call it to order, I want to identify who's in attendance. So just let me know who's there.
Okay.
We may be pretty full.
I definitely saw Kamali. I saw Katura. I saw Kim, yourself.
See Jen yet?
Yeah, Jen. Yeah, there's no last name, but Jen has her hand up, so I'm assuming that's
okay,
your fifth member.
That'll be easy.
Okay.
Then, so I'd like to call to order the special open meeting of the Southborough School Committee on Thursday, January 20th, 2022. The time is 7:37. All committee members are in attendance.
And just for your benefit, Superintendent Martineau, Assistant Superintendent Lavoie, and Becky Pellegrino, Finance Director, are also present from the school administration. I'm then going to go next to Marguerite for Youth and Family Services.
Hi.
Sorry, Marguerite, I meant library, but you are in Youth and Family.
I'll do library right now. I think I'm I know I'm on too many boards, I guess. I think for attendance we have Amy Yostani, Jane Davis, David Eckberg, and me, and I think that Janet Maney is joining at 8:15. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do not see Janet.
Okay, but we do have a quorum.
It appears that way.
Alrighty, so I will call the Southborough Library special meeting joint with the Capital Preservation Committee to order at 7:38 on the 20th of January. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Marguerite. I have moved Lauren in for youth and family.
Sorry about that. So I just take a quick look. We have for Southborough Youth and Family Services, we have Beth Dombarker, David Joyner, Susan Byer, and Marguerite Landry, if I didn't miss anyone. And so I call this special meeting of the Southborough Youth Commission to order on January 20th, 2022 at 7:39 p.m.
All right, thank you. I believe I'm down in my last committee, then we can actually get started. I'm going to bring Mr. Pfaff in because I do not see Ms. Cook. Andrew, I'm just going to have you scan. I don't see a quorum because I think you need 5. I only see 2 or 3 based on my math, but I just ask you to just do a quick check. And then Lisa has graciously offered to monitor in case you do get a quorum throughout here.
Okay, sounds good.
You can see the attendees, right, Andrew?
I can now. I just moved over.
Okay. I just see you and Marcy. I don't know if you see anyone else. I just wanted to triple check.
Correct. Just me and Marcy.
Okay. So I'm going to note that you, go ahead.
Sorry, I just, I'm not sure if Council on Aging has a quorum. I don't know who Carol is. If Carol is Carol Yozo from Youth and, from the Council on Aging, then they have a quorum in attendance. Mr. Peck is here. Mr. Harrington is here. Marianne, I believe, is Marianne Anderson, and Sandy Keese is here. If Carol does happen to be Carol Yozo, then there is a quorum of the Council on Aging with a non-posted meeting.
Okay. I'm going to bring Mr. Peck in, and I'll let him address his committee, but obviously we need to have some removed. The meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, so you will be able to watch it as we go. So I'm going to ask Mr. Peck to come in and see what he wants to do.
Thank you.
Doug, did you hear all that?
Okay, actually,
Yes, I did hear
Jason,
all that.
Doug, just so you know, actually, there was a comment put in the chat. Carol Yozo is here too. So
Okay.
you currently have a quorum of the Council on Aging. So my suggestion would be for somebody to jump out that's currently here for Council on Aging and go watch it on YouTube. Then you won't run into any open meeting law issues.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea. If someone would raise their hand, the volunteer to jump out, Lisa can see if you're raising your hand or not.
So I currently have Bill Carroll. Let me just see. Marianne, who I'm assuming is Marianne Anderson,
Mhm.
and Sandy Keese is here. So if one of them, there is a hand raised, Marianne is raising her hand.
Okay,
Okay, so Marianne, if you want to jump off and go to watch it on YouTube, it's streaming live, as Jason said, then there will be no quorum issue. Sorry, Jason, didn't mean to
Nope,
jump in.
nope,
you're helping me. Thank you.
thank you.
Doug, I'm going to move you out, but I'm also going to move Marianne out just so.
Okay,
Okay. I think we have dealt with that. So Doug, I will put you back to attendees and we will get going.
okay.
Okay. So before I thank you for bearing with me. It did take the 10 minutes I thought it was going to take, unfortunately, but appreciate everyone bearing with us and for all of you that have joined us tonight. We have guests that I will let introduce themselves in a minute, but the Capital Planning Committee has had the pleasure to work with DRA since a public procurement process, to do a town space needs study was conducted over the summer. Since that time, I can personally speak to the level of effort that the team has devoted working with our department heads across most town departments that are impacted by what we're going to hear tonight to come back with options for consideration moving forward. I would like to personally thank each of the department heads that spent countless hours with this team, being flexible in terms of their thinking. And I think we hopefully will have many paths forward to accommodate many needs of the town in various groups and organizations and departments as this moves forward. I would caution everyone tonight that the images, options, etc., are very preliminary, and that this should be considered a phase 0 of any analysis. It's going to require significant public vetting and ultimately town meeting funding for anything more to happen beyond what's happening here tonight. As the chair of the Capital Planning Committee, I think it's incredibly important that we continue to collaborate with the many organizations that, in departments that we have had the opportunity to work with going forward, listen to feedback, and bring a comprehensive collaborative plan ultimately forward to a future town meeting. I would ask that the way that the rest of the evening is going to work for those of you that have not, we're not here right at the beginning, is DRA will make a presentation. The committee has heard an interim presentation a few months ago. The main change since that interim presentation was we started to model out potential options if the Woodward school were to be repurposed. The main reason that that decision was made and moved forward with the support of the superintendent of schools was given ongoing conversations with the MSBA related to a statement of interest that was submitted related to the Neary School. In conversations with the MSBA, which is the state funding agency that helps support towns through constructions of school buildings, they asked specifically how we would organize the schools and whether there would be any consolidation that would occur. And if there were to be consolidation to occur, what the town would repurpose buildings for. So you will see various iterations and programs that DRA is presenting tonight. And I would remind everyone that, again, this is phase 0 that requires further collaboration, coordination, and discussion amongst many groups. You will also see department names listed in various parts of this presentation. These should be considered what I would call neighborhoods. These are not final decisions. There are no walls in any diagrams that you will see, and they are conceptual in nature to show what we have so far engaged DRA to do is to show that the future needs of the town can be accommodated via square footage of many different existing buildings in our infrastructure. We look forward to the continued collaboration and obviously the questions that will follow DRA's presentation. And again, I wanted to thank all those that have been involved to date and the countless hours that have gone into getting ready for this evening. I'll also note that on February 9th, at the regularly scheduled school committee meeting, there will be a presentation from the subcommittee of the Capital Planning Committee really called the Capital Planning - School Research Subcommittee, related to recommendations on our study of the future and recommendations related to the school infrastructure and how that interplays with some of the information that you'll hear here tonight. So with that, I will turn the floor over to DRA for their presentation, and we will then engage in public comment after the capital planning committee members have a chance to ask their questions at the end of the presentation. So thank you for bearing with me. And Ken, Courtney, and James, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jason. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be back with you, and also the new folks as well that are here tonight. My name is Ken Best. I'm principal with DRA, and with me is Courtney Southwick, who's been the project manager and has done a lot of the work that you're going to see tonight. And we also have Jim Barrett, another principal who is here to sit in and see what we've been up to these last few months. So tonight, we're going to be presenting what our approach has been, our findings, and our recommendations for the space needs study of the town. Actually, Courtney, I should give you over the, can you put on the slideshow?
You should have co-host privileges, Courtney.
All right, can everyone see the screen?
Yeah. So why don't we go to slide 3? So one of the things we wanted to do initially was just find out where all the buildings were relative to the town. And so we have basically the map with the buildings located. And there's a small group of buildings, the Townhouse, library, and Court of Hall in the center of town, Neary School and DPW a little further out, and South Union at the bottom of the map. And the locations were part of our consideration as we looked at the reuse of the buildings. Next slide. Where we are today, we're down at the bottom in the reporting section. So tonight we're presenting our findings, what we've discovered through the work. For the report is we need to complete that. That's well on its way, and we just need to work with Jason to get that in an appropriate format. And tonight we'll be presenting our recommendations for the study. Next. Current findings. We've taken a look at all the buildings. We've looked at the spaces that are in them, and we've sort of understood the needs of the town for the buildings as they progress. But we've noticed some of the things that we've noted is that some of the programs are not in spaces that are really suitable for them. And we've got a few examples here. The upper left photograph is in the school department, where the cabinets at the bottom are only 2 foot high. Just an example, a kitchen counter is typically 3 foot high. So these counters are very low and tough to use. And then you've got huge wall-mounted cabinets, which are those are massive compared to what we've seen. Then in South Union, the gymnasium building or portion, where the ceilings are a lot lower than the gym. So that restricts the kinds of uses that can occur in that space. And then the bottom photograph is the vault in the town clerk's office. And you've got to go down a couple of steps, and then it's very tiny. It's really not anywhere near enough. And so the materials that should be in the vault are in places that really aren't suitable for those materials. So we've gone ahead, we've developed options, and the report is pretty close to being completed. Next. Now, just the process of collecting. So we were able to get documents on a good number of the buildings. We took photographs, we did floor plan drawings and measurements where needed. We've developed summary of our investigation work with the various departments. And part of that was to issue a questionnaire, which you're seeing in the bottom left-hand corner, where basically we tried to make it as simple as possible by checking the boxes as far as the kinds of furniture that they have. And then when we had interviews with the staff, we reviewed those charts and added to them as needed. And we talked about how they use the buildings and what they saw for the future needs. And then we're able to develop simple charts, such as in the right-hand side here, where we could list out the current space. Now, one thing I should mention about space that we're talking about is net square footage or usable square feet. So we're not including corridors, toilets, mechanical rooms, any of that. We just want to know the raw space that the departments have. Next. So here we have an example where we've got the floor plans for South Union building, and the colored areas show the net square footage. And we've left all the stairs and elevator and that sort of thing off. And then from the information we gained from the various departments, we use the information on the right-hand side, which are just little diagrams of different kinds of offices and how much floor area they need, pieces of equipment, file cabinets, how much space does 33 stacked boxes take up. These were for some of the basement areas. But it then gave us an idea of what we needed to propose. And so the chart that you're seeing here in the yellow, we've developed the proposed square footage for the areas that they need. And so with that total square footage, we can look at a building and say, does this department fit within that building? Or if we added another department, would it fit? And so we explored combinations for how the departments would work together. And so here's a summary of where the departments currently are. So across the top, we have the list of departments that we work with. And then on the left-hand side, the buildings. And so if there's for example, the assessor, we could look down at the yellow box and see they're in the townhouse. And so it's just a way that we've organized looking at the buildings. And then when we get into the proposed, we move these boxes around to see where they fit within various buildings. Then we have a quality factor, which is just really the quality of the space and how easy it would be to move in with a new use or just to continue the use that they have. And some buildings are a lot better condition than others. Some, like Corderville Hall, has some issues because you really can't use the second floor. The hallways are too narrow. There's some issues with that. You're really limited to the first floor. And you've got Townhouse, which is working pretty well for the town department. So that's just a little guide for us when we were looking at the uses. And then this is the chart which I'd mentioned a little bit before, calculating the space needs. So we have the existing square footage. The next column is the proposed square footage that we're projecting the department would need. And then in the next column, the total square footage for that particular department. And then for the other buildings, we've just put in the totals here. If we were to look at a new building, we need to add in corridors, toilets, and all those unassigned spaces. And they typically ranges from 20% to 30%. And so for example, in the town offices, if they were to look at a new building, it would have to be at least 8,000 square feet. Next. And then adjacencies. What departments should be next to each other? Now, this chart, there's often a duplication of information, so we gray out the top section. But if you wanted to look at the town administrator and what departments that they would need to be near, you can look across the chart and find technology department, but then you can also look from the top row down and also see the treasurer, collector, and then the school department. And so we did that with as many departments as we could. The other thing we did was identify departments that would need to be more centrally located in the town. And this is going back to the map. So anybody like the permitting departments, the Board of Health and zoning, building and zoning, facilities, where they need to be more central so they don't have to drive quite as far to any part of the town. It just makes their life a little more, a little easier. So we considered factors such as those.
So building on what Ken talked about in terms of the assessment of information, we take all of those existing conditions and kind of factor them into options. And each of the options charts are similar to that one of the charts where we talk about what departments are located in what buildings. And the color chart legend that you see here identifies different things that could happen in each of these buildings and departments. So you see new use in blue, renovation in orange, renovation addition in yellow, existing to remain is a grayed out color, or new or other building is purple. And green, we call it market analysis, but anywhere you see green in these charts, that's just identifying that those buildings are not utilized in that option. So again, like Jason mentioned, these are very preliminary. They're just talking about what space fits where. Does it work with the proximity chart that Ken talked about a little while ago? And just looking at things that could happen within the buildings of the town or potentially in a new building. So when we looked at the first option, we were not, this was looking at just the 6 buildings and then the potential of going to a new building. And the pros associated with this is we can consolidate the town offices. The school department organization improves. We actually move the school department over to Townhouse. The space is associated, the space allocation in the Townhouse is actually pretty close to the school department needs. You could still maintain shared conference area within the building, and there would be some minor renovations required in Townhouse to make this happen. The superintendent's office moves, recreation moves to a new other building, youth and family services can be relocated to Corderville Hall. If we move all the permitting departments and town offices together in this new other building, it vacates some space in Corderville Hall and provides youth and family an opportunity to move over there with a nice separate entrance. And then the senior center, we would show a small addition in this option. Oh, and then I didn't speak about the library. The library does show an addition here. Graphically, we're just showing it off to the side. This doesn't mean this is a final location. This is just showing square footages and what would be needed for an addition for the library if we were to go with this option. Second option, this is not a valid option, but we're showing this just to show how we do hit roadblocks when we look at things. This includes the South Union and the Margaret Neary Elementary School. And at this point, we were thinking it still might be feasible to use some space in here and potentially put recreation in Margaret Neary. But based on building quality and knowing where Margaret Neary is headed with a statement of interest, we eliminated this option, as well as the fact that South Union is actually geographically located not very central to the town itself. You can see it way down here. Everything else is consolidated up towards the central part of town. And again, we looked at building quality. South Union would require a lot of upgrades, not just on the exterior, but the interior to accommodate programs for the town. It's currently being used by recreation and youth and family, but it's not an optimal location for them. So the third option utilizes puts different uses in Townhouse. So we're still talking about consolidating town offices with a new or other building and potentially putting permitting offices, public meeting space, shared conference rooms, and youth and family in the townhouse. Now, this was an option that was discussed, and there's pros and cons associated with this. Youth and family would have to enter into the building and up on the second floor. We do have Board of Health also shown on the second floor. There's plenty of space, but it's nice to have separate entrances for some of these programs. So anytime you see this yellow on the floor plans, that indicates a shared conference or a shared break room. And that's across the board for all of these plans that we're showing. So you can, again, South Union Building is not utilized in this plan, and Margaret Neary is not utilized in this plan. We do show renovation additions on several of the buildings here, in addition to the new construction option. So, there's pros with less properties that are owned by the town departments, but also the cons associated with this is there's a cost associated with new construction and addition for 3 buildings. So when we learned that Woodward was a potential option for this new or other building, we got pretty excited, and we got, we started looking at all the opportunities that this building had. So if this is a feasible option in the future, this building is around 70,000 square feet. So, it's not just about square footage, but it's how can these spaces work together, in this building? Is it optimal in terms of allowing these spaces to work efficiently with each other, adjacent to each other, and utilizing the shared spaces? So option 4 looks at Woodward, and we did a lot of iterations associated with that. Now, the interesting thing here is this does not have an addition onto the library. We actually looked at putting library space, a potential annex, in the current library space of Woodward. So this still maintains only the addition at DPW offices, but now you can see South Union, Margaret Neary, and Corderville Hall are all highlighted green in this option. And option 5, the difference here, I should highlight that, if we explored the school department being in this option and not in this option, the con, if we do move the school department over with this specific option, it vacates Townhouse. So a con here would be that the Townhouse itself is not utilized if we were to move all the departments. And then option 5, again, we thought permitting and offices in Townhouse might be a really great use. You do see a lot of yellow associated with this. We maintain some technology offices here. But if we do have permitting offices here separate from the other offices, it does allow a lot of flexibility of space here, and you see a lot of flexibility of space in here in terms of these yellow areas. So up here, again, we maintain the 3 buildings that are not utilized in this. So it minimizes maintenance and the properties owned by the town, and then utilizes much of Woodward for the town offices. So one thing we'd like to point out is we've had discussions with the Council on Aging and Senior Center about locating this within the building. So you'll notice that in option 5, we have the Senior Center located as you enter on the west side of the building. This is the cafeteria zone. This is the current administration area. And something that you can't tell from this plan is that, when you walk into the building, you walk up to the left, there's actually some steps to get up into this main wing of the building. So something that was not optimal with this option is that you had to go up and down steps. And if you're a user of the Senior Center, that could be an issue, having to go up and down those multiple levels. So we discussed that with option 5 and option 6. That was something that was considered a con, but you can see that option 6 is very similar. We just swapped the permitting offices with the school department. And so the school department we know has, proximity issue, not proximity issues, but it's helpful for them to be located with the town offices. We just wanted to look at the option in terms of usability of space in the townhouse versus the permitting offices being in Woodward, and seeing kind of what was the best fit between those two. So what I want to talk about is option 7, and then kind of transition into our recommendations here, because I think what's important to highlight is within option 7, there's some minor, there's a little bit of flexibility with what we showed. So option 7 actually shows a lot of utilization in Woodward for all of the town programs, including the school department in red, your permitting offices, your town administration would be here, as well as youth and family and recreation, your senior center. So one of the key things was flexibility of space. And we targeted this area on the 2nd floor, saying this is a really prime spot. It could be, optional library annex for you all. It could be a recreation or shared use and public meeting room. So there's a little bit of flexibility with what can be done here. But if we try to fit all these programs in to Woodward, then we don't have any use in the townhouse. So we want to kind of focus on that in terms of our recommendation. So looking a little bit at the site, you can see the 1st floor plan here and the 2nd floor plan on the upper level. What we'd like to highlight here are just talk about entrances. When we're trying to combine a lot of different programs together, we have kind of maybe some identity issues with the building. So we want to highlight that there are some, entrances that are actually well-defined. On the west side, we have the main entrance to the school building. We are proposing 2 entrances to the senior center, one on the north side, which is this image right here, which could be further well-defined. And then we would have to create a new entrance to the senior center and a new hallway off of the east side of the building, as well as a new entrance for youth and family. And then number 3 here, which is this image here, you can see a nice well-defined entrance on this east side of the building that comes into this public corridor. So we feel that this building, because of the size of it, I think it's almost 400 feet long, actually. You'd be able to define entrances into various parts of the building and actually help with wayfinding as you're, coming around the building, which is very important for people that are especially coming there for the first time. So as you come in, you could have a shared resource here where the cafeteria is for the recreation, shared gymnasium, and then you'd have your town offices that are here as soon as you walk into the building. There's immediately the town administration is here, treasurer, collector, town clerk on the 1st level, and then you have your vault and the records in a much more appropriate space than they are right now, and much more, there's much more space for them as well. And then again, youth and family here. So we're not showing the whole floor plan of these buildings. These are diagrammatic and showing adjacencies, but just something that we wanted to kind of highlight and is, ease of access to. The school department is up on the upper floor, and you could easily access them coming through and going through the main stairwell that's located right here. So in addition to the entrances that we just focused on, we did take a little look at parking and how that could work, because there is concern over accessibility when you're talking about all these various use groups getting in and creating new entrances. So currently there's about 109 spaces at Woodward, not including this circle right here. And, we could expand that with additional 34 spaces on the east side of the building. We're showing this kind of encroaching on that yard area a little bit, and the basketball courts we could have to eliminate on this part, but you could gain a lot of parking. You would need some retaining walls over here, but I think it would be more than ample to service what you would need for on the day-to-day for the senior center as well as youth and family. And we just have this image over on the right to show the overall current parking. So Ken, did you want to highlight this?
Sure, yeah. So our recommendations, after we've gone through all the process that Courtney just covered, we had to sort of narrow it down to which buildings we would recommend the town work with. And so the four on the left, Townhouse, Library, Woodward School, and DPW are the ones that we recommend be developed. And then Corderville Hall, South Union, and Margaret Mary School, those be have a different disposition depending on what the future needs are or desires are. So when we look at the floor plan, it's very similar to the one that Courtney talked about. But we have at the front of the space, a shared multi-purpose room, which is the current cafeteria space with a kitchen. So that could be used by whether it's the town departments or really any department that needs some large space. The school department is another example, and has the ability of serving food as well. The town administrator is on the other side of the hallway, connected almost directly with the treasurer collector, who is up a few steps from there. But those two departments work very closely together. Then we have some conference space, a couple of conference areas, and then the town clerk, again, as Courtney mentioned, with the vault on the opposite side of the hallway. On the left-hand end is the senior center. And what we did here was to eliminate the corridor that runs through the room, through the building. And we created that rear entrance for the senior center. So they have two entrances, one directly off the rear parking lot, which is definitely the most preferred for anybody that has trouble walking or has any kind of disability. So they have their own complete space that can be organized whichever way they would like. And then the purple area next to them is youth and family. And so we're creating, or at least suggesting, their own separate entrance directly into their department. So again, they can use that rear parking area and maintain the privacy that they're looking for their clients. Then the gymnasium, again, that's a shared space. Obviously, rec department is going to use it probably the most, but it is a large meeting space that could be used. And then we move to the second floor, where on the left-hand end, the pink areas are the school department. We've got some conference space there, and with a folding partition, that can make a nice large meeting room that would be very helpful for the school department. We do have a couple of tech storage areas and offices within the building. They do get boxes of computers and things like that that they need to store, and they also need sort of a work area as well. And we come to the the other town departments here, assessors, economic development, Board of Health, and the rest of the permitting departments up on the second floor. So they're relatively, from anybody coming in through the main entrance, there's the elevator and stair to bring them right up to that department. And then lastly, we have some more conference areas. And again, other multi-purpose space that really needs to be better defined as far as what that could be and what that might be. Certainly in a town office with a multi-use building such as this, there is a need for a lot of flexible type spaces that can have multiple purposes. And then on the right-hand side, the townhouse, the library would like to have some additional space. And due to their proximity, it seemed like the townhouse would be a golden opportunity for them to get some other usable area. And the functions that they might put in there are still to be defined, but there are multiple opportunities that they have to avoid actually expanding their building at this time. And then the current library building on the bottom would remain as is. And then actually I should have mentioned the second floor of the townhouse. They'll have meeting spaces there, but there's also some other grade area which can be flexible space that could be used either by the library or other town departments if there's a high demand for meeting space. And there we have the blow up of those areas with a few photographs on the left of the townhouse. But one thing we looked at was the proximity, and it's interesting. We just went on Google Earth and took a measurement from the library to townhouse. It's about 500 feet. We also measured Woodward School, which is 400 feet long. So it gives you a sense of how close those buildings are together. Courtney?
So just wrapping up what we talked about earlier, we're looking for comment and feedback. We know a lot of stakeholders on tonight, and a lot of you, we've met with you before and we've talked about a bunch of these options, but we'd like some feedback from folks tonight. And we're going to be putting a report together probably in about a week to document the options and document the feedback that we get tonight as well. And we'd just like to thank you for your time. And we can go back to any of these slides and discuss. We're happy to, to go through these and answer any questions that you have tonight.
Thank you all. What I ask you to do, Courtney, just to make my life a little easier for a second, is I'm gonna have you take your screen down, but be ready to go back at any time if someone wants to focus on something. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go around to the capital planning members first to see if they have any questions or comments. And I'm going to put the school committee on notice that you will be the first committee that I will call in for public comment once capital planning has taken a turn. So that I'll go to Ms. Brascio.
Great. Thank you, Jason. Thank you very much, Courtney and Ken. It was a pretty comprehensive report you've put together. Very much appreciate all the time and effort that you've put into it. I think this creates a tremendous opportunity for us to have a true municipal complex within the town. This is something we've talked about for a long time. And I think you've shown us that it certainly can be done. It also allows the ability to downsize some excess buildings for, optimal disposition. I do have a couple questions for you though. In looking at the space, were the department heads that you spoke to fairly comfortable with the draft space allocations that you had given them?
When you say the draft allocation spaces, I'm talking about the recommended option.
Yeah, the square footage of the space that you've had in say option 7. Were the department heads fairly comfortable that it would address the needs that they currently have and that they foresee they may have in the future?
The good thing is we actually have some buffer and little bit of a multiplier and with the spaces that we show. So there is some flexibility for growth. There were a couple departments that we met with and actually increased the square footage from what we originally talked about because there were programs that we just didn't know about, the first time that we met. So there were adjustments within the process. We haven't heard from anyone that what we have shown to date is not acceptable for their space allocation. So if there's someone tonight that does have that, we welcome their voice right now and we can make some adjustments if necessary.
Okay, and that kind of answers my second question about does option 7, and again, I'll just go back to that because that was the last one, does it account for future growth? I know, there was the 2,700 square foot space on the second floor that at this point, there's nothing really in that space. So, that may play into future growth if need be. Plus, I mean, obviously there's space at the townhouse as well. So one question I would ask is, so the Board of Selectmen did not post a meeting for tonight. I'm sure that there's some feedback or questions that they may have. Is there a time frame in which we could get those to you to be incorporated? By the end of next week, or Courtney, what would be most optimal for you?
Well, we're working on a timeline. We were planning on finishing the report by the end of next week, but if we need feedback from other folks, it'd be great to get some feedback, by next week, and then we can bump that 1 week, that deadline to accommodate.
Okay. So maybe Tuesday of next week, Mr. Purple, I'm sure would love to send an email out to the board tomorrow, asking and coordinating any feedback from them by, say, Tuesday. That wouldn't create a problem for you if we did it that way.
Not at all.
No.
Okay, great. Thank you again. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. Jeff?
Yes, thank you, everyone. Lisa took my question on potential growth and how we factor that in. So I'm good on that. But the other question I have, and I'm embarrassed to ask because I've been in the building, but are there elevators in Woodward?
Just one.
There's one. Okay.
There's one.
And is there any need or consideration for additional elevators, or there's gonna be so many people in the building and factored into any type of plan?
It's not required by code. Programmatic, I guess we would have to talk to each department programmatically. We haven't heard anyone voice a need for an additional elevator to date.
Okay. And then just the question on, probably way too early, but just a question on cost consideration for each of the scenarios, because I think those are important factors to weigh in on the ultimate decision as well. So maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but I don't know if you've got any preliminary thoughts on that.
We did look at preliminary costs for the recommended option, but we did not do cost estimates for each of the options. This is very, broad brush strokes right now. So there's a huge range in that cost in terms of, there's no investigations have been done in existing conditions, and, there's a lot of unknowns associated with renovations at this point.
Okay, no, thank you. Appreciate it.
Maybe Courtney and Ken to just expand upon Jeff's question. Based on what you know today, repurposing, if you follow the option 7, repurposing that building is going to be significantly less than constructing even a quarter or less, 20 to 25% of that building in a new spot somewhere else to accommodate maybe 1 or 2 of the needs as opposed to the 10 plus needs. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. With that, I'll go to Joe.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my questions are really for more the global community, the departments. But specifically for you, I guess what I would ask is, so if we just magically reassign Woodward to our arsenal of reorganization, at the moment we're 3 pounds of sausage and a 2-pound casing. Would we then, my understanding is that we would then go actually a little bit surplus in space for all the departments and needs that you assessed. Is that a fair assessment?
I think I understand your question in terms of, we do show there is a surplus of space, when we look at the plans, and I can bring those up in a little bit. All the yellow areas are either shared or there are opportunities for growth or, future programs, which is one of the reasons why we really liked the townhouse for the library program, because, it could be the teen room and I forget another program, the Idea Lab associated with it, could be the children's space, it could be media, but as those change and as libraries change, there's opportunity for growth there. But by moving that library space there, instead of trying to pack it into Woodward, you also allow that flexibility in Woodward too, to have growth in those spaces. And so we showed a lot of shared and flex spaces kind of in the middle and separating different departments so that they could potentially grow in either direction.
And I mean, obviously we have to talk to our own communities, but Was your sense that most of the departments were accepting or encouraging of a move when they talked to you?
You know, there's always people that are, they are. So it's, you know, any move or adjustments are changed, but we didn't hear a lot of pushback other than, you know, which is understandable. The library department was a little bit concerned about trying to separate, you know, programs in a separate building. But that is something that, you know, may be a new, like a current need versus a future need. So there's, you know, we've discussed the timeline for library grants that Ken can probably speak to a little bit better than I can, but, you know, an immediate need, the townhouse would suit that versus trying to wait, you know, 10 years or potentially for a library grant in the future to do work for that building.
Thanks. That's really all I have for you. Great. Thank you.
I'll go to Tony.
Yes, thanks, Jason. So that was a great presentation. So my question is about parking at Woodward. So as we're aware, most of the parking is at a much lower elevation. So if the senior center moves, you know, to that spot on the building and you propose 34 more spots, I don't have any sense of how many parking spaces are currently at the current senior center. So is that really enough space for the senior center parkers?
So currently it's, oh.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. So currently at the, you know, the senior center houses the Board of Health as well, you know, in the permitting departments, the building and zoning. So it's not just use. And I believe we counted around 60 to 70 parking spots over there that are not fully utilized every day. In the case that they do have events, which is, you know, multiple times per year, but you know, it's probably a handful, they're going to pack that parking lot full. So when we go to, I think we had 109 spots that are currently over there at Woodward. They could easily fill that parking lot, and then but they would utilize multiple levels. But on a day-to-day, they probably won't need that many, more than the 34.
Is there room for more than 34 up there behind the building, or do you think that's as much as you could fit?
That was just very schematic. So that's just looking what's feasible, maintaining the play space over there. There is a slope. So the further you push that back, the higher your retaining wall gets over there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Tony, I think it's important to also note, because I think this is candidly the spot I ended up having to spend the most time on, helping, you know, the team coordinate some of the discussions, is there is basically going to be the ability to do a turnaround back there as well. So you would have basically a drop off that would be at the same grade and level to the larger spaces on the you know, the right side of the building closest to the public safety building for larger events. So in those larger type situations, if the parking was exceeded in the back, you would have the ability that someone that maybe doesn't need the parking out back could do a drop off and park out front. There's also a lot of parking on the front side of the building on the right side near the existing circle where the buses come around. And obviously, if it was not a school anymore, you would have opportunities over there too that I don't think we've spent any time on yet, because we found a lot of spaces already. So that it for you, Tony?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, Karen.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Ken and Courtney. A lot of my questions have been answered. The one question I have is, and I don't know if this is under your jurisdiction, is that, so it looks like the Corderville building would not be used at all under the option 7, right?
That's correct.
So what happens to that building?
That would be a select board discussion of whether they wanted to bring it to town meeting for disposal. And
Okay.
ultimately town meeting would have to vote.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mark or Brian, as our ex officios, any questions before I'm going to, as you ask your questions, I will start to bring in the members of the school committee and school administration.
I don't necessarily have any comments per se. I really appreciate the efforts that Ken and Courtney made to work with the needs of the various departments. And the one comment that I heard from the committee tonight, that that I just wanted to comment to, I think it was Joe, is that the sessions that I did sit in on with the departments, I know that we've had to separate some departments out of buildings they were in. Building department is the one that comes to mind, simply because there was not enough space in the townhouse. They ended up getting moved down to Corderville Hall. And I know that some departments, really wish that they could be in proximity to departments they share a lot of day-to-day activity with. So I think there is a little bit of excitement from some of the departments to basically have everybody in the same space and, a little more day-to-day cohesion in the efforts in that. So no questions, just appreciation for the work that's been done so far.
Jason, can I add just one additional comment?
Yes, please.
On behalf of the committee, I think we'd all like to thank you, Jason, for the amount of time and energy that you've put into this as well. I think it was more than any of us had expected when you stepped forward to do this. So I think on behalf of the full committee, we thank you for your guidance and leadership on this as well. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Roger, I tried to bring Kamali over, but she's not accepting my invite, but I think I got everyone else on your team. But before
Kamali had some conflicts.
Okay.
So I don't know if she had to step away. She very well might have, which is fine.
She's there. I think.
Oh,
she's
okay. Because she had given me a heads up before the meeting, and I said that, understood. All right.
Before I turn it to you, Roger, I just really wanted to thank you, the school committee, and also the school administration team. Obviously, this required time of theirs as well to try to bring this together. And, I've been part of a lot of conversations, and I don't think the community realizes the collaboration that's occurring here. And hopefully is starting to see it now with, certain discussions coming out, into the more public. And obviously with everything that the school community has dealt with this year and the challenges that continue to come on a daily basis to all of us in our lives for circumstances obviously beyond any of our control, I just really wanted to take a minute and thank everyone for continuing to advance this. I think you all have a big picture view of the community and aren't just looking at it just from a school perspective and looking to obviously try to figure out what we can do as a broader community here together. And obviously this is a step in the process, but certainly obviously not the destination at this point, but we look forward to continuing to work together with you. And thank you to you and your team for your efforts to date. So that I'll turn it over to you to moderate as you see fit.
Jason, thanks. I'd like to echo Lisa's comments about your leadership throughout this. As Lisa said, I am sure that that you didn't expect where the scope of this would be and where it would have gone by this point in time. And also like to thank the members of the district staff, superintendent and the staff. They've also put in a tremendous amount of work on this. Specifically, as far as the school committee, I think I'd like to shout out to Katura Martin, because Jason, as you know, she's really been the member of the school committee that's been involved in this throughout, and certainly has expended probably more time than the rest of us. But for that said, I have a question before I ask for other questions. And would it be possible to put the recommendations, I'm saying not just the last one, back up on the screen for a minute? I don't know if that's possible at this. I don't know if that's possible, but what I'd like to do is go back to the version that had schools in the townhouse. I'm not sure whether that was recommendation 6 or 5 or. So, and in this recommendation, because I haven't obviously been involved in any of the discussions with the library folks, where would the library, where would the expansion for the library be? If the schools were in the townhouse, would they also be in the townhouse, or would they be over in Woodward? Is your,
Specific one shows the annex location on the second floor of Woodward, and actually
okay,
where the current library is for the school and the
okay,
spaces associated with that.
all right. Okay, well, thank you. I don't need the option up anymore, but I just wanted to mention, because I think there has been some discussion. I think the assumption that schools need to be with the town offices is probably not necessarily one that I guess we would say would have to be. I mean, we sometimes forget that schools is not just Southborough schools. Schools is really three groups: Northborough, Southborough, and the region. And certainly it's convenient for us in Southborough to have schools in Southborough, but it's a trip for folks in Northborough. And even though the Townhouse location is a little further than Neary, although I'm not necessarily so sure about that based on the drive, to add even more distance for effectively 2/3 of the folks that use the schools might not be fair. So I just want to put that out there. I think there has been some conversation, as I understand it, maybe Jason with you or with Mark from the superintendent. I haven't been a part of those, and I don't know to the degree that they've matured or not. But I just want to make sure at least people are aware of that thought. And sort of that said, I'll look to the rest of the school committee to ask any questions if they have any at this point in time. I guess I can see hands up or not. And if we and if we don't have a lot of questions at this moment, and I see Kamali does have her hand up, I think just need to recognize that this is new for a lot of folks, other than Katura. But I see everybody's hand up, so I don't think I need a caveat. All right, I'm just going to go from the top left on my screen. Kamali.
Hi, good evening. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what weighting or consideration you gave to programs becoming more and more virtual and departments in the future that normally we would have in the past gone to in person to submit documents or sign, et cetera. Both now as well as 10 years from now, I imagine more of that would be electronic. And so the need for, X amount of square feet of space for that office or the personnel would be less. Could you talk about what considerations you made for that?
Well, we did have discussions, not just about, personnel and office space, but also storage and what's going to happen with storage in the future for various departments. Because right now, there's some files that have to be retained permanently. There's some files that have to be retained for 7 years, things like that. And the actual need for storage, we sent out that nice little chart that talked about how many file cabinets do you have. So ours is what we have is a worst case scenario. And that's what we have to plan for is the right now in terms of bodies and chairs and stuff. But there is the potential that, some of these positions or some of these offices may be shared. So we did talk about certain offices that might be, half-time versus full-time and things like that. But I think the key with the plan here is that we have flexibility so that if you add people or if we go back to needing people in physical spaces, we have the capacity for that with these options. So it's always a better scenario, what you're talking about in terms of needing less space and actually reducing the number of buildings by, not using South Union, not using Neary, and not using Porterville. You're actually economizing on that space. So you're not needing that other space, but you actually have the capacity in Woodward for programs to increase, even if the number of people in bodies and seats decreases. So, recreation could expand, things like that. So, we did. But it's a little bit unknown at this point, how many people are going to be in that seat, 5 years from now.
I mean, we did have some discussions. One comes to mind with the assessors department, which traditionally was a very busy department relative to public coming in. But with everything being online, they really didn't get a lot of public going to that department. So that changed a little bit about the way we thought about the location for them as well. I'm not sure that, I mean, most of the town offices are still very heavily in need for people physically in their spaces to deal with the public. So
No, thank you for that reply. And to follow up, during the review that was done, was the study shared with you that was done for there was a population study that was done? Was that shared with you as you were crafting this? Maybe my colleague Katora could speak to that. Right, that's all. Thank you.
Are you referring to the enrollment study for the schools?
Yes, yes. Well, but within that, yeah, it talked about both the enrollment of students, but there was actually some data that talked about population, the families that would be moving here, and from X amount of families, you would assume this amount of students and et cetera. To kind of leverage that as a way of understanding, where the volume of people here and the services they would need 5-10 years out.
So I think it's a tremendous comment. I think the timing of how that flowed in to the school committee and the subcommittee was after most of Courtney and Ken's work was done. So we will make sure they get the final copy that was finalized. I think, Greg, that was December 23rd.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I think that would be helpful if we shared that with them. Thank you.
Kim.
I was wondering if you could speak to option number 7 and sort of what the assumption is regarding the actual students, like where are the students that were at Woodward?
That's probably a better question for Greg, myself, or Katura, because I think it relates to the school research subcommittee. All of this is predicated on the statement of interest related to NERI.
Okay, so option 7 would sort of like not progress unless that other part was working.
That's my opinion, but I'd welcome Greg or Katura to validate that.
Could I just ask a question so I can understand Kim's question? When you say if the other part weren't working, when you say other part, you're talking about the
statement of interest.
Suspension of NERI. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, Katura.
Yeah, so I was just, Kim, the first thing I was going to say when it was my turn is first I was going to, and I apologize for being off camera. I'm not in a camera friendly location right now. But thank you for the presentation. I thought that was very informative. And even though I've spent a lot of time on the sort of the school side of things and space and enrollment and all of that, this was my first glimpse into the town's analysis of this. And I thought it was very thorough and well done. And Kim, I think your question is a completely natural one because so what my initial comment was going to be that obviously all of this is predicated on something else happening with the school buildings and moving forward in the direction of either the MSBA statement of interest, or I know that as a small schools research subcommittee, we're also looking into the pros and cons of moving forward with something without MSBA because, it's an alternative path. And so that's something that we're actually meeting on tomorrow. And so there will be a lot more coming forward on that whole aspect of things. And at our next school committee meeting, we'll be presenting more information on all of that. So this is just one piece of the puzzle. This is like sort of the town side of it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So Katura, I guess you're there to continue if you like.
Okay, so so my only real question about the presentation was that for the senior center area, is that space that they would presumably occupy in Woodward, would that be, is that comparable space to what is at the senior center now? It looks smaller to me, but I think it's hard to tell.
We actually I think the last meeting we had with Doug, we had a Google image of the senior center, and you could see the size of Woodward compared to the senior center. And it actually, the amount of square footage that we're showing is greater than what they're occupying now, because they're occupying mostly of Corderville Hall. And what we're not showing, and what is not shown in orange, are the shared spaces, the economy of having this building that has other space that they can use. So for example, there's a kiln pottery room that we have highlighted in yellow, and that's used for senior center, and that's used for, potential recreation. We're calling it a pottery kiln room. It's not that right now. But it's one of those things that we're calling a flex space that is an economy of space. So not only is it the orange space that we're showing, which is greater than what they have now, but it's actually, these other opportunities for space that are shared within the building too.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay, so I kind of asked my question at the beginning, but before I guess I leave, I too would like to thank the folks at DRA for this, for the presentation tonight. I also thought it was excellent, and for all the work that went into putting this together along the way. Jason, I'm not sure how you want to handle the fact that we're done.
Is your committee comfortable taking a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I would say that I'm comfortable asking for a motion to adjourn, and we'll see how they vote. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved. This is Kamali.
Kamali is moved. Is there a second?
Second, Kim.
Okay, so moved by Kamali, seconded by Kim. It's a roll call vote. Kamali?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Katura?
Yes.
I vote yes. So that's unanimous. So we are adjourned at 8:51 p.m. And thank you, committee, and thank you, everyone.
So Katura, don't leave yet. I'm just going to motion that the Capital Planning - School Research Subcommittee adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, roll call. Martin?
Aye.
And Malinowski is aye. So thank you all for joining us, and I'm going to head to the Youth Commission next.
Thank you.
And I realized I did not give the Youth Commission a heads up. Library, you will be on deck. All right, Lauren, I think I got everyone. Susan's not accepting my promote, but everyone else I think is in, and I'm going to move the school people out as you start.
Okay, thank you for the great presentation. It was very informative. I didn't have any specific questions. I thought it was very clear for things related to youth and family services, but I'll open it up for any questions. If you want to just put the hand raise for any of our commission that had a question. No? All right, I think we're okay. Oh, Marguerite.
Hi, I have a question, but it's not youth and families because I think we're probably all going to need to get together and discuss this. But my question was, does any of the space consideration take into account some kind of auditorium space for town meetings in the future? That's off topic, but it's an important question to me.
So I can believe in all of our options, we maintained not necessarily auditorium space, but we did maintain public meeting space in Townhouse on the second floor, which is what it currently is, with the option to actually expand into that nook area and help with the acoustics in the space. So when you say auditorium space, are you talking about public meeting, or are you talking about more of a like something with a stage and presentation type space?
No, I'm sorry this is off topic, but I just really wanted to get it in. The town meeting space in Trotter is currently too small to hold meetings in with social distancing. It would need about 200 to 300 people space. Any options for that?
The only place I think would be the gymnasium, which has a stage.
Yeah, there's a small stage in the gymnasium, Marguerite, that, and I think anyone that used to be part of that precinct before it all consolidated to Trotter probably has been in there to vote before. The other thing I would say is, I don't think it's an off-topic question. I think it's an important question. Hopefully we don't have to socially distance at future town meetings beyond probably this year, but we probably all thought that last year. I would also say that's going to be relevant to the schools when they start talking about what if anything, is going to happen in Erie, and how that project comes about, and whether there should be an additional auditorium there. So I think it's maybe not this particular site per se, other than the gym. I believe we did some occupancy work before DRA was involved about what that could hold. I'm sure the building inspector and fire chief will have strong views of how many can appropriately assemble in that space, but I don't think it's going to be 300 people.
Okay, because I'm just saying that we're putting off town meetings time and again because the weather's no good for them, or it's too cold, it's too hot, it's too wet, and I think maybe for the foreseeable future we could maybe think about a larger socially distanced space. Just saying. Anyway, okay.
Jason, can I respond to that as well, just
Go ahead,
briefly?
Lisa. Yep.
Hi, Marguerite. Welcome. Nice to see
Hey,
you.
hi.
Just a quick thing with what we had, town meeting had agreed on, and we're waiting to hear back from the AG's office. We would have the opportunity, once that hopefully comes back in February, to utilize Algonquin, the auditorium and the gymnasium there, which is much larger than we have at Trotter. So there currently is an opportunity if we need it once it comes back from the AG's office. And I think Jim had said it the last time he updated on that, he was thinking sometime in February.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That solves the problem. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions from our committee board? If not, can I ask for a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
My second.
All right, Beth Dombacher,
Aye.
David Joyner,
Aye.
Marguerite Landry,
Aye.
and Lauren Ritchie, aye. So we will adjourn now at 8:57.
Okay, thank you for joining us. I'm going to move on to library, and we'll slowly move all of you out at the same time. All right, Margaret, I think I got everyone, so the floor is yours.
Okay. And are there any trustees who'd like to comment?
I'll say something quickly.
Okay, Janet?
I'm sorry, I signed on at 8:30, so I missed the entire presentation. But I'm just so impressed of all of the different groups I've seen here. I've seen faces I haven't seen for years. It's been a very inclusive process, and it's really terrific to see. I think, Jason, you've done a great job there.
Thank you.
Good. Any other library trustees want to comment?
Yeah, I do, Marguerite.
Okay, that's Amy Yazdani.
I think before we try to fracture the library into different parts in different parts of town, we need to probably survey our patrons, because speaking as someone who has had small children, trying to schlep them to multiple buildings, I think would be really disheartening for a large group of our patrons, as well as the staff it would incur, which would increase salaries. So I think there's a couple of things we need to look at, not that it's out of the question, but there are extenuating circumstances for the use of the library, and then also staff members. At the current time, areas can be covered, but if it's a whole separate building, that isn't a possibility.
Okay,
Mario, maybe I'll just reply to that, because I know obviously you had selected Janet as your liaison, and obviously we had a lot of conversation with Ryan and Kim too. My personal view, as someone that kind of lived through the process with DRA, is I think this is one of the areas that's going to require the most discussion, both with your user groups, but I think the broader community. And I would also remind you that there are options that DRA has thought about to potentially increase on the current footprint as well. Obviously, that would add more square footage to our overall town population. But I think at least I would acknowledge, having gone through the process, that that's something that's going to require a lot more discussion. And like I mentioned in the opening, this is obviously phase 0, but I think it's an incredibly valid comment that we need to work together to solve.
Thank you for that, Jason. And I know that there are a lot of moving parts in the air with the library. And for anyone who's watching, the library had planned to start with a whole set of grant cycles with the state of Massachusetts to get a planning and design, and this would probably move out any expansion of our space to probably 15 to 18 years from today. Given the way that how slowly it moves. So we are definitely, we are having a meeting on the 25th. And it would be wonderful, if we could all get a copy of the presentation so we could discuss it, and this will be prominent on our agenda. And I think it's kind of premature for us to come back with anything at this point, but we will certainly, you can rest assured we will discuss this extremely thoroughly and be back to you with our questions.
I might just add, if I may, Marguerite, this is David Eckberg. Some of you may have read in the Globe, Congressman Jim McGovern was present at the dedication of the reopening, or the opening, I guess I should say, of the Shrewsbury expansion of its library. And he said, I think this is more or less verbatim, he said, a town's values are sometimes best expressed by its cultivation of its library. And that's very important. And some of you may know that, for instance, we are bursting at the seams. And for every good book that is donated right now, because of space constraints, the library, believe it or not, has to throw out a book, which doesn't strike me as being very responsible. So we are very committed to trying to, in a responsible way, to accommodate what we see are the existing as well as future needs of the library. And I think I speak for most of my colleagues that keeping the library together and not separating a function, not separating the children's library from the rest of the library, seems to be a very important ingredient in the cohesiveness of the organization going forward.
All right. Thank you, David. And thank you, Janet, and thank you, Amy. Any other trustees want to speak up at this point? I did have one question about the townhouse. Maybe you could answer. The townhouse is scheduled for renovations. Is that moving forward, independent of how the townhouse ends up being used eventually?
In terms of renovation, it's exterior, and that was
Mhm.
funded by the CPA project last year.
Yep.
And then the only other renovation that has been funded to date is redoing that first floor bathroom. So one of the criteria that we outlined early on was, given the way that the warrant article was phrased last year, mainly based on how it went through the CPA process with community preservation, was that, and I think you all are very familiar with this based on your own project, is that that building was going to stay in the town's inventory. And we were trying to find a good purpose for it. And as you could see, there are many potential options for it. So I don't think we have a choice based on how that vote went. And obviously, it's the image, at least in my opinion, that you see most often of downtown Southborough is of that building. So.
All right. So the answer is yes. Okay. Janet, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
if no one else has a comment at this point, I think valuing our library and extending what we're currently doing to meet the needs of the community and the express needs of the community, and keeping it in one place are mutually exclusive things right now. I've had some time to think about this. Splitting the library into different locations sounds horrendous, but if we can't expand our current building, I don't know what our alternatives are. We can move some stacks different places, we can do some storage different places, but if we really want to expand, we have to look at moving a function or subsidiary functions, maybe make a satellite library if that seems more palatable and workable. But I think we've got a lot of hard things to look at in the future. And we've got years to do this, because this wouldn't be available for years. But if we look at expansion at our current location being 10, 15, or 20 years off, then we have to look at alternatives, as painful as they may be, and scary. But I think with that amount of lead time and that amount of thought and planning, we can make anything work.
Good. So thank you. And any other comments? All right, so this will definitely be on our agenda for our meeting on the 25th at 11 o'clock, if anyone wants to tune in. The other thing is, could we please get a copy of the report electronically so that we can read it and discuss it at our meeting?
Margaret, it's posted in our public packet. So the town clerk posted it with our agenda. So if you just go to our agenda tonight, what they shared, she ran there. And Ryan had his hand up. I know he took it down, but I don't know if you saw that.
I actually just had a quick question for you, Jason, or for anybody else from the committee, and it was only because the CPA component was brought up for the townhouse, because I know we're now looking at the townhouse too, potentially for library space. I think I know the answer. I'll say that, but there's nothing within the CPA project scope, right, that would prevent the library from using that space in the future, right? It's because it's just about maintaining the exterior of the building, right?
We will go back and reread it, but it was always to maintain the building in the town's inventory. It was all the discussions I was part of when we were working with John Parent, but we'll confirm that with John Parent.
Okay, so to clarify, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
I'll take
we're ready.
I'll take it from, was that Amy? Was that
Yeah.
Amy or?
That was
Okay,
me.
Okay, Amy will move and Janet will second, right? Okay. Is Jane on? No, she isn't, I don't think. David?
Yes, she is.
Oh,
Aye.
she is. Jane, where are you? Oh, there you are. Oh, yes, your vote to adjourn, please.
Here.
Okay. Did you vote to adjourn?
Well, yes. I'm for it.
Okay. And David?
Aye.
Okay, and Landry, aye, and Janet?
Aye.
All right, and Kim is not, oh, Kim is with us.
No, that's Ivers.
Oh, it is Ivers. Okay, and Amy?
Aye.
All right, so it is 9:08 and the joint special meeting of the library trustees with the capital planning committee is adjourned.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay,
Good night,
thank you
everyone.
very much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
All right, at this time, we will do a open public comment or question process for anyone that has not had the opportunity to speak. Just raise your hand if you'd like to make any comments or ask any questions. I see hands up. I'm just going to keep going. I got everyone from the library out. All right. Andrew Pfaff.
Hey everyone, great presentation. Nice to see everybody again. My only quick question was, did you take into consideration any exterior space requirements? I'm thinking mainly senior center has like the bocce courts and the garden beds, some of that kind of factors in terms of, you know, what would be able to handle.
I think it's a great question. And Courtney, I think you have a great answer. Yep, there you go.
Sorry. Yeah, we did take into consideration some of those spaces with the senior center option. You know, we started looking at outdoor space specifically a little bit closer when we moved it onto the north side of the building. There's a great opportunity to expand the outdoor space on the south or the west side of the building over here. It gets a lot of nice sun. You know, it could be a patio space. I know that bocce is something that they spoke about as well, and there's opportunity on the site to do something like that in a flat space as well. So, you know, we didn't really define what this is, but we have about 2,000 square feet we showed adjacent to the senior center that would be dedicated for them.
Perfect, thank you. That's all I have.
Is there anyone else in the audience that has a question or comment? All right, I'm going to go to Bill Harrington, then Pam.
I guess I'm on now.
You're good to go, Bill.
Okay, good. First thing I'd like to paraphrase what Dave Eckert said about the town is judged by its library. It is also judged by how it treats and accommodates its elder population. That said, my concern is still a little bit about parking. I think Courtney said there was 34 spaces in the back. At some given times during the week, we could have more than that number of people attending our senior center because we have several functions going together at the same time. So 34 parking spaces, we use more than that sometimes. One of the things that if we have a big function, we might be using the old cafeteria on the other end of the building. And is there going to be additional parking down there? Because if people are attending a senior function in that area, I'm sure they wouldn't want to be parking up in the back of the building and trying to get through and around and down into the, although maybe some of them would. But I was just concerned that there might be additional parking on the other end of the building for functions that we might be holding in the function hall. And also, talking about 34 spaces in the back, if that was also being utilized by youth and family and maybe some of the recreation people during the day, although that's not probably a big thing. I think 34 back there is not going to be enough space. And for our seniors to access the building from the front is kind of an iffy thing since it's a lot of elevation issues and that. So they would be utilizing the back parking area. Is there an option to expand that area back there by moving that retaining wall back some or doing something like that?
That's a great question. Yes, the short answer is yes, you can definitely expand back. You can see this red line here, which kind of indicates where the property line is. So, there's always the chance to go back here. We haven't done any explorations at this point if there's ledge or what have you. So there's always a cost associated with developing a little bit more. So, this was just a first crack at, what could be feasible to provide some additional parking back here, but there's always the opportunity to expand on that. But we have not factored in any costs or any investigations with what's going on back here in terms of the soils or anything like that.
Yeah, because during some of the days, we have 3 or 4 functions going on simultaneously. And with the more space, we can have more activities going on at the same time. So 34 would be a very limiting amount of space for parking for our group.
I think one of the thoughts was that the 34 spaces, all right, youth and family will be using some of those spaces, but the remaining spaces are basically at grade access into the building. So the preference would be for anybody that has impediments as far as moving around or has some disability or what have you, would be given priority over those spaces. And then those in the senior center that have more capabilities could park across the front and then walk up the sidewalk to the senior center entrance. I think one of our concerns was the ramp at the front of the building. And that was a concern right from the start. And so we looked at that rear entrance off the main.
That ramp is 100 feet long. So that's a hike for some seniors.
Yeah, and that's why we didn't want to use it.
Yep. Okay.
So, it would be possible to develop some parking in the rear. The ground does rise up quite a bit, so it might be a little bit terraced. You may have to have some ramps or some steps to go from the, shall we say, the upper parking down to the front parking there.
So what's to keep other people who are utilizing the building from parking in the back? Maybe that's a question.
I think that's a policy decision that if we get to that point, I think we're going to be in a pretty good spot as a community. I think I would hope is the easy part. We obviously have a member of the select board here. We have our town administrator here who also serves on the public accessibility committee. So I would hope that that's something we could resolve through policy. I'd also remind you, Bill, I know we've talked a lot about parking in the planning phases, is that rear entrance when you have a larger event is at the same grade as the large cafeteria space. So no one would be navigating steps, ramps, etc., through the rear of the building if you were to use that space for a larger event for the seniors. So I do think that it's actually a really short walk compared to some of the other distances we just talked about.
So if we had a large event, we'd have 100 vehicles close to it. So we could divvy the parking between the back end and the public safety end as far as access to that hall, I guess.
Yeah, there's a significant amount of spots on that side. Obviously, we can't speak for public safety and what trainings they'll have once COVID comes up. We get out of that. But are you good, Bill, if I bring Pam in?
Sure. Could I say no?
No, you said. I'm going to move you out, Bill, and give Pam the floor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pam, you're on mute, but floor is yours when you're ready.
Hi, actually, that was my concern, was the parking. You know, if we could put more parking in the back, I think it's really important. I think people say, okay, this, you know, if there's an event, how many people would there be? There are, on a weekly basis, multiple times, there might be an event with 30 people plus another 25 people doing something else. You know, I'd say that happens at least 2 or 3 times a week when we're running classes and programs and things overlap. That was concerned for one side of the building. For the other side of the building was that large event. Any kind of stairs, ramp, you know, long distance. You guys are aware of that. So, I mean, that was Bill pretty much covered what my questions were. I'll be, you know, interested to see as this progresses, you know, where that goes. I just, you know, the more spaces, the better, basically, and the closer they can be, the better. It's just kind of that lower level parking is really going to be very, very difficult for a large part of our users. There are people that can do it, but it's not going to be the majority, that's for sure. So I think you pretty much covered what I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. All right, are there any other members of the public wishing to speak? Tim Davis.
Hello there. How are we doing?
Okay. Good, how are you?
Good. I guess my comment goes back to Ms. Braccio. One of the first things you asked about departments being happy with their square footage, about what they're being presented. And I guess the caution that I have, and I think that, and I don't want to speak in, you know, for my commission as they're not here tonight, but on paper, obviously it's attractive. Anytime you put a gymnasium in front of a recreation director, you know, they're going to say, yes, please, when can we start? But I think the bigger thing to look at, and I know Pam and I have talked a little bit about it, is yes, there's shared space for what that's going to look like, and how that's actually going to function properly between the two of us. So I guess my ask, just jumping on screen, is that as we move forward through this process, if we could, you know, tour the building. You know, there's one thing to see a green block of 1,000 square feet, but actually seeing what that room looks like and how it could actually function either as an office or as storage or as a shared space, or throwing a kiln in there for a pottery room, to have a better understanding of what these spaces actually look like and what these spaces are actually going to be used for. I think would be helpful if we could just keep that in mind moving forward. And then every time I've come in, my biggest concern is just storage. You know, half of our building is really occupied by storage, not so much with rec, but also youth and family and facilities. So just ensuring that, you know, we're not getting boxed out of our allocated spaces because of the storage need that we have. So just, I know seniors are considered with parking as they should be, but I know rec is really concerned with storage as our bigger programs and bigger seasons come into play. So.
Tim, on your first comment, I just wanted to, you know, I think should the town move forward with any portion of this plan, you know, my intention would be that this would move to a building committee phase, which would then include representation from multiple user groups. Ultimately, it would be up to the select board to decide the composition, but if history is any precedent, if how this town operates, I think, Lisa, back to the committee you served on, the St. Mark's Golf Course Committee, which I think Bill was on as well. You know, that was what basically helped define the future of the site that is still the golf course. And I think that would be something we'd have to work through. And one of the things you also notice, and it's probably tough to see, is there's purposely no walls in these diagrams. So I think when you actually do see the space at a future date if this is the path we go down. Part of the cost here is going to be removing walls potentially, or adding walls to create the space. I know some of the department heads I talked about the flow of their space. That will obviously be something that I'm sure Ken and Courtney and team, if they were the designer for that phase, would be very eager to talk to anyone about, just having lived through this in that area of the town with the public safety building. Anything else, Tim?
No, that's it. I'm sure once I get back in a room with my commission, I'm sure we'll come up with some questions or concerns, and we could always forward them from there.
Okay.
But thank you
Thank
guys
you.
very much for tonight's presentation. It was great.
All right, last call for public comment. Okay, is there any other comments from the committee before we release Ken, Courtney, and James? All right, seeing none, team, you've obviously heard a lot of thank yous tonight. I'll just give you one final thank you on behalf of the committee and the town. And we look forward to obviously getting you feedback from these user groups and hopefully some additional phases of work.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
to see you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care.
All right. Now for the fun part, minutes. So we have 2 sets of minutes in front of us this evening. I guess I should just make sure, anyone want to discuss anything further on that? It is on our agenda for Monday too, again, so obviously have some time to digest everything we've heard tonight. So I'm gonna move on to minutes. The first set of minutes are from December 6th of 2021. Are there any questions or comments there? Okay, seeing none.
I think I had one. It was the page 1 was where Vertex is to perform.
Maybe we say is performing.
Yes. Well,
Vertex to perform.
Vertex is to perform.
Okay.
Okay. And down under the 21 Highland Street Committee, where it says, when it talks about the committee is
page,
seeking.
Jim?
Sorry.
What page? Which page?
It's the first page, I believe. Still the first page, where the 21 Highland Street committee report was from me. Right down about in the middle of the paragraph, it talks about the committee seeking endorsement. You have that there?
Yes.
I would like it if it reflected to read that I was seeking endorsement of the committee's work from the town, not from the committee. It was from me. If it was interpreted differently, then I would apologize to the committee for that. But I was seeking an endorsement of the committee's work from the town. And on page 3.
So Joe, I reworded it.
Yep.
Mr. Palmer indicated that he's merely looking for an endorsement from the town.
That's fantastic. Thanks. And on page 3, under the police department report, on point 2, the second sentence, it says the chief A carries instead of the chief carries A. Thanks. Very incidental.
Thank you.
Good, yeah, it's good stuff.
All right, any other comments? Everyone's comfortable with Joe's edits? Okay, then I will move that we accept the minutes with the edits discussed during the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Braccio.
Aye.
Hark.
Aye.
Palmer.
Aye.
Shoner.
Aye.
Wheeler,
Aye.
and Malinowski's aye. So that's unanimous. We go to 1222, which was joint with advisory. Jeff, is this a carbon copy of what advisory approved as their minutes, or did you edit their approved minutes?
The most part is a carbon copy. I took out parts that were not relevant to us, you know, the subcommittee and other pieces like that, but, you know, it's been, I can't recall exactly verbatim
Okay.
what it's about, but it's
But predominantly, if we put them side by side, that's what they are.
pretty darn close.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest two changes, or one change, one addition.
Sure.
Under the bullet point that says pilot payments that have been agreed upon for safety vehicles and equipment.
Yeah.
The only pilot payment that's been agreed upon this year is related to fire turnout gear. Mark, that's correct, right? And I think that would have been in our chart that we had on our presentation. So just call it fire turnout gear. I wouldn't even call it safety or equipment.
Fire turnout gear. Got it. Pilot payments have been agreed upon for fire turnout gear. Got it.
Yeah. And then, well, the other stuff is obviously relevant. We talked about it. I kind of think there should be a bullet point saying we reviewed each of the items. You can reference the presentation that like are being proposed for the 2022 annual town meeting. Am I missing like a bullet point related to that? Like all of a sudden we jump from like the like some of these conceptual things to like the recreation van and the roads, which obviously those are at the latter end of things we haven't vetted yet because they haven't come before us. So I would just add that the committee walked through each of their votes on each department's capital plan, see presentation or something like that.
So I'll put that kind of almost as the first bullet then.
Yeah, or wherever it fell in the meeting. It doesn't really matter. I just think it's important to note that we walked through every single item that we voted. I think we're all unanimous on that too. So that was the process we undertook.
The committee walked through every item voted on by the committee all unanimously. Okay. All by unanimous vote.
Yes.
I have one change, Jason, too, if you're, sorry.
Do you want me to share my screen for you to see, you guys, so we can?
Yeah, I'll give you co-host. Lisa, go ahead with your comment though.
Mine was just mine. I didn't mean to, I wasn't sure if you were done, Jason. Just where it says JM presented the slides, if you could just spell out Jason's name. I know that it's just consistency with, that's typically how our minutes are, instead of just initials.
Sure.
Right above the bullets, JM presented the slides. If we could just spell out Jason's name.
I fixed it.
Oh.
Did
you just change? Okay, I was gonna say, wait a minute, am I looking at the wrong sheet? Boy, okay, that's it.
I added this.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
I added this first bullet here just to let you know.
And then I would just add on to that exceptions to items that are still under consideration or discussed further down in the meeting, right? Because we had that slide at the end, which is covered, I think, at the end. Like we haven't talked about a feasibility study for Neary. We haven't talked about the regional capital stabilization fund. We haven't voted on roads. We haven't voted on ADA, but we will on Monday night. Okay. I'm comfortable. Lisa, it sounds like you're comfortable. Any other comments? All right, I'll move that we accept the minutes with the discussed edits. Is there a second?
Second. Sorry, Joe.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Braccio,
Aye.
Hark,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Shoner,
Aye.
Wheeler, and Malinowski's aye. Is there any other business that anyone wants to discuss before I just give a 1 second preview of Monday night? Okay. So I apologize for having back-to-back meetings. It is not going to be a short meeting. We'll be starting with the school department, both regional and local, related to their capital budgets, including items for this year. Karen will be coming to discuss road maintenance. Karen Galligan, that is. There's been extensive conversation on that at advisory and the select board, but she's supposedly bringing a plan so that we can vote on a number related to road maintenance for next year. And the agenda is posted with the town clerk, but there's a series of other items we're going to take action on. And Mr. Purple is very persistent trying to get some final votes so that he can lock down some positions with the select board and advisory to move the budget process forward as they look towards finalizing a warrant. So that's what we're doing Monday night. I will try to keep it moving as efficiently as possible, but just wanted everyone to be on notice, and then I think we'll be in a good spot. All right. I will move that we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second by Jeff. Roll call vote. Braccio.
Aye.
Park.
Aye.
Palmer.
Aye.
Shoner.
Aye.
Wheeler.